The Adams is such an iconic fly that it's featured on a great many channels, and it wasn't on my list of flies to tie in the near future, but I'm working on another project which is updating the list of patterns and instructions for tying that are on the Missouri Trout Fishermen Association Springfield chapter website. And I discovered in that process that I needed a picture of an Adams, and so I thought I would tie the Adams for that picture. And since part of my goal with this channel is to have a personal record of the flies that I tie, I decided to go ahead and do a video of this fly. The Adams is particular. It is a mayfly imitation, but it is particular in that it has a very specific recipe. The tail is a combination of grizzly hackle and brown hackle feather fibers, about the length of the hook shank. I am tying this on a number 14 dry fly hook. The body is a neutral color, tan or gray dubbing. And just make sure that as I put that dubbing in that I have room to tie in the front hackle. The wings are the tips of grizzly hackle, dry hackle fibers, or dry hackle tips. And then the front hackle is a combination of the grizzly hackle and brown hackle. So after putting in the dubbed body, I do have two tips, and I have trimmed the ends of those so I have those little barbules to tie in, and I'll tie that one, and the wings are the length of the shank from eye to the bend of the hook. Tie one in on each side of the hook, and just use a pinch wrap to grab the end of that feather. And I'll be standing them up here in just a second. I'm tying them in so that the color shiny side of the tip is facing out away from the fly. And then I'm going to grab both of those feathers, those wings, and pick them up and pull them towards the eye. And I'm going to wrap behind them, just a couple wraps to get them to stand up. And I'm going to split them a little bit because I'm going to lay my front hackle between them. So I have also taken and clipped the tip or the butt ends of the front hackle feathers, and by just clipping along the stem right here and leaving the little barbs, that gives a better tie-in. And so I'm going to lay that down between those two, and I am putting this with the shiny side towards the shank. Grab that tip, and then I'll lay the brown one on top of it. I did the same thing with the butt end of that brown hackle. Then again, I'm going to pull those two wings forward and wrap behind them to tie in those hackles behind the wings. And then those wings will stand up between the front and back hackle. Then these are long enough, I think I can just grab them by the tips and wrap. I want a couple of wraps close up here behind the wing, and then wrap in front of the wing, a couple more wraps. Whatever looks good to create a nice hackle that will cause this dry fly to float. Catch that in. And then I'll do the same with the grizzly hackle, a couple wraps behind the wings. And the reason they're tied in with the shiny side towards the shank is so that when I wrap them, that dull side is forward and the shiny side is back, and then that makes the hackle fibers, the dry hackle fibers, point towards the front of the hook. Tie that off. Then I'm going to grab and pull back on everything here. So I can get up in front of all the fibers and wrap in a head over the butt ends of both of those hackle feathers. Working not to catch fibers. The more fibers I catch, the more cleanup I have to do afterwards. Then I just put a little bit of tension on my thread and snap those hackle fibers out. Can do that if the fibers are fine enough, if the stems on those are fine enough, otherwise they need to be clipped out. Stand those wings up, and then I'll put a whip finish. Again, I'm working to make sure I don't grab extra fibers when I'm doing this. 3 or 4 wrap finish is enough. I'm going to put some head cement on it. The head cement I have is goop, which comes in a tube and it's diluted, and then I can just the needle that sits in the bottle will pick up a drop and drop it on the head, and then when that dries it gives me a good solid, kind of flexible, like goop is kind of rubbery, not hard like a resin would be. So the traditional Adams dry fly.